Hello. Hey, my man.
Hey, how's it going? See you guys. So they probably need no introduction, but please join me in welcoming director and co-writer Guillermo Del Toro and watching every time I see this movie, I love that ending more, and I think it's because every time I see it, I see more throughout the movie how you both kind of make that ending inevitable and lay the groundwork for it. But it seems to me like it would also be kind of a scary thing to have your whole movie hinging on that final scene. Like that final scene has to be great, or the movie doesn't work at all.
And there's a certain brutal simplicity to it, which means that you're doing very few things, but they have to be executed perfectly. Meaning it has to be real and so on. I remember I'm fortunate to have a friendship with Ethan and Joel Cohen, and I showed them the movie, and Ethan is like getting a massage from a sandpaper. dry weight. And he wrote me an email saying, I love the movie, and everything that needs to works exactly the way it needs to. He says, and I know this is a compliment because I know how hard it is for that to happen. And it is true. Everything, we conceived the movie as a ramp, as something that was prologue to the last 3 minutes of the film. And that's the way we describe it to each other, to Bradley, to the collaborators. We knew that that was the ending. And as we discussed, but it bears repeating, it was done when we were the most unprepared to shoot it. It was completely, it's one of the things the movie did which allows me to go with the accidents because the path is the obstacle. And the day we were going to shoot a different scene, Tim Blake Nelson was in Toronto. We arrived to the location because we built the carnival outside. And we had weather covered an old barn with made of metal. So there were hurricane level winds. And Miles Dale, my co-producer, comes in and says, you have to shoot the ending or we lose the day. And I was absolutely flabbergasted. We were not prepared. And Bradley, who was our producer in the movie too, I talked to him and he said, what can we lose? Let's do it. We had talked about how many times are we going to repeat that shot over weeks, and we nailed it on the first try. And that's what's in the movie. And it's because we had fused at that point. Him and I became like the Vito and Schwarzenegger, twins that look very different. I'm okay with the shallow end of the DNA.
Well, and Kim, in terms of the writing of that scene, as Guillermo says, it's so simple. It seems so simple, but how difficult is it? Like, how complex is it getting to something that simple and clear?
Well, I mean, we really looked at the circular way the novel went to that, and also, I mean, it's complicated, but we knew it was leading to that. So in many ways, it wasn't as complicated. What was complicated was having to, because we knew a lot of people would know that's where it's gonna go. Right when he walks in, a lot of people, I mean, there's some people that may not know that, but, and then especially people that have either seen the 1947 version or have read the book.
It's a very famous movie for the connoisseurs of noir and classic cinema.
So we wanted it to be where you could think that this could happen, but how did it get there and what is his reaction going to be? And that's the power of it, is that how do we write what his reaction will be and what will the look on his face, how to hold that on his face. And we changed one word, which was, I was born for it rather than I was made for it, which we thought was much sadder to say that you were born.
And he feels his destiny, Yeah. And the thing is, the beauty of it is literally one of the things we did when we started writing is transpose the entire text of the book into final draft.
Yeah.
So we have all that, the dialogue of William Lindsay Gresham I am telling you right now, you have to read that goddamn book. His dialogue is so amazing. And he has the best dialogue here in any medium, bar none. And his rhythms. So the exchange between the two guys is almost verbatim to the book, except I was in Buffalo 2 nights a week,
Right.
you know?
But like
the
coffee
rest.
and cakes and all
Coffee
that
and
stuff,
cakes, you smell like you piss your pants.
Yeah.
All that is Gresham. And Gresham, we couldn't ask for a better, the dialogue doesn't seem mannered. It is not rat-a-tat genre dialogue. It's real and alive and full of little, everybody, what was it? Everybody is fine if you have do, re, mi, and the grouch back.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That means you have money in your pocket.
Which isn't in the movie anymore.
It isn't, but it
Yeah,
was.
but-
Yeah, I mean, the dialogue in the movie is fantastic, and it's one of the things I like about it is that so often when you see people try to do contemporary film noirs, there is that kind of like, hey, like this.
I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, it's like this artificial quality. To me, the thing that makes this feel that this has in common with classical studio noirs is the attention to detail in the smallest roles. Like that's something that struck me. Again, when I watched the movie over and over again, it's the first time you see it, well, it's Bradley Cooper's movie, focusing on him. Tonight when I watched it, I was just, like even the hobos at the end,
Yeah.
you've got Stephen McCaddy,
Yeah.
amazing actor,
Yeah,
he's a
amazing.
fantastic actor.
Yes.
He's basically like an extra.
Cagey as hell. And Stephen, I said, Stephen is only a few lines, but it's pivotal. Really? Absolutely, man. Because look, the guy that says, "What are you gonna buy today?" It ruins the movie.
Mhm.
If a guy comes in and goes a bad line, and you're right about that. Is what it hasn't come. But the language, we were very much into pre-code because pre-code has period dialogue, but it's not adorned. It's very much trying to reflect a non-genre rhythm. Because let's face it, gangsters or screwball comedy have a certain rhythm. They're gonna go 100 miles an hour. So we wanted to listen how, in a non-adorned way, pre-code was, or as we discussed, the movie Fast Workers, which is a Todd Browning comedy that most people don't know about, but is really useful in hearing the dialogue unadorned.
But also not to moralize on the characters, which a lot of pre-codes did not do until the code, people can get away with
Everything.
Was it Night Nurse where everyone kills, where they get away with, people get away with things and there's a lot of complexity, like Other Men's Women, a movie that we really love by William Wellman.
You also Jim with the choo-choos.
Pardon me?
That's a triangle, beautiful triangle between two men and a woman.
Right,
Without any moral judgment. It's gorgeous.
no moral judgment, and a great introduction by Jimmy Cagney.
Yes.
And
And the camera work of Wellman was very influential for me.
Yeah.
He moves the camera so beautifully, as does Preminger in the Fox Noirs.
But some of the a grittier noir, like Detour or The Thread or things
Born
like
to
that,
Kill.
which felt like, we were talking about this the other night,
To Live for Tears.
there's almost like a neo-realism aspect to some of those noir.
Well, Ossessione, he's no accident,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Or Il Grido,
El Grito was another one that looked
which
at.
is James and Cain, My Nose the
Which is
Murder.
another guy that goes through kind of a circle, and ends
Yeah.
up at the same spot at the end. And it's Steve Cochran, who's in so many great noir, American actor. So, we really looked at the literature from the period, which can't just be classified just simply as hard-boiled. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but anything that, they shoot horses, don't they? Was talk about a deep ending.
And his Lonely Hearts,
Yeah.
Day of the Locusts, and also the plethora of, there's obviously, you can read Jack Black, or you can read
Right.
the Monster Midway, which is Gresham's own
Another
expansion
great
into
movie
the
by
carnival
Monster
world.
Midway.
Yeah, and we read a lot of text about that period in America.
Which kind of shows that things are rigged,
Yeah,
they shoot
yeah.
horses, don't they? It was really
It's
showing.
like
that
you're in a.
They were basically like freak shows.
This world is a shit show. And that's what Noir exposes. He says the American dream, the Tao says, beware of calling something beautiful because ugliness will born out of it.
Yeah.
And the American dream is the one of the fucking American nightmare. The two most absolutely destructive notions are perfect romantic love and success. Fuck that shit. Just nature of life. And the reason this works is we are in an era in which we felt this movie would address the short-eye of the blurry line between truth and lies, the curation of into a short-eye of our world. We curate our world so carefully, and there's something hollow about the way we get addicted to this sugar rush in pursuit of something as intangible as clicks, or followers or whatever. There's a epistemologically very dangerous moment right now. We are, as a dialogue, the dialectic is vanishing.
Yeah,
But also underneath that, which is in the book so much, is the fear.
Yeah.
So underneath all of that is this fear, and William Gresham often wrote about in the novel the dreams they would have running from some unseen monster.
Which we shot, by the way, too.
Yeah, we did shoot that.
We shot 1 hour more of movie.
And so the Stanton, it's important that Bradley as Stanton is carrying that, and I think that Bradley's he did such a brilliant job of doing that. So when he says, "I'm afraid,"
every day of my life.
Like I believe him. I don't think that he's just trying to get her out of the stall. I really do believe that he's scared. It's like he's just trying to, stuff it down there, and then eventually quell it with alcohol, which is something that the author who we
It was vital for the novel and the movie.
no, but it was all because also Gresham.
Yeah.
Because Gresham was an alcoholic.
He was so many things.
Yeah, I mean, many things.
We love the guy. We love him.
That was one thing that when
We
we
would
first,
love to write a biography.
yeah, we became kind of obsessed with him, and we really merged him with Stanton because just learning about his life and all of the things that he had done and all of the everything that he studied to try and kind of look into himself and better himself, everything from psychoanalysis.
Communism.
He was a communist for a while. He was in the
Catholic.
He was in the
Communist. Dianetics.
Right. Briefly, Dianetics, yoga, the tarot, which he really did believe.
Physical culture.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Prestidigitation, stage magic.
And Christianity at a certain point too, which is why he and his wife Joy Davidman started to write to C.S. Lewis. Well, she went off to meet him, and then she ended up marrying C.S. Lewis, which Shadowlands is about.
But the beauty of Gresham for me is that he is like Stan, a seeker.
Yeah.
He defines Stan with the first card of the tarot,
The Fool.
which is the Fool, which is not only he who walks smoking into the future, but a guy that is seeking an answer. And Gresham finds an answer. It's a terrible answer, but he finds it after getting all the money from the novel, from the rights to the novel. He spends it in a very moving way.
Yeah.
Like he made it almost like a kid. He doesn't take into account the taxes. He buys huge properties, horses, and he rides the horses with, get this, bejeweled cowboy boots. I like that. I love that. I want bejeweled cowboy boots. And he writes very poignantly. He says success, which is also very interesting. Success is to an artist what the preservation for a deep sea fish does. It explodes in contact with.
Yeah.
He then went downhill, got throat cancer, and committed suicide in the same hotel room that he had written Nightmare Alley in. And he had a card, he had two cards. You should Google the other one, but the one that was important for us was a card that read, "You'd rather die than face the truth." And that became what the movie became about. The ending was that.
He also, his other card was no money, no job,
No,
no number,
I'm
no,
unemployed,
something like that, yeah.
which I want to have made. Just in case.
I find it so interesting that you made this movie about, it has this like bleak view of American success as your follow-up to one of your greatest successes.
But that's why we made it. You know, one of the things is you react like half a year late and half a year early to everything. And, you know, I didn't know Trump was gonna win when I started Shape of Water, you know? But it became more urgent as he did. And then you didn't know there was gonna be a pandemic, but there was this anxiety in the air. Already, I think the entire species, we're having a psychotic breakdown. I really believe it. All of us are crumbling. And you know, it's almost like the world ended and we are just finding out. You know, and I felt it in the air. And we went at it. Somebody may think, oh, why did they think this movie was needed? I said, well, I thought it was 3 years ago. And now I think it's more needed than any other time. Because what I find absolutely preoccupying is the things that lie to us. The things that tells us or show us the truth are always beautiful. And if they're not done when you feel you have to do them, and if you go from a movie to another and you try to repeat what got you success, you find an emptiness. But if you're scared shitless of a movie, you have to do it. And I was scared shitless of this one.
Yeah, how about you, Kim? Were you scared shitless going into this one?
I wasn't really so much, I mean, we really wanted to work on this together, we had talked about it. We weren't sure that it would even be made because it was, so dark. I mean, this is film has a history of having a problem with, the darkness of it.
The first version was basically buried by Examine.
Yeah, they buried it. It was barely in theaters for.
But we knew we were going to go into this and we were gonna approach the screenplay in an ideal way, like exactly what we wanted to do. And then I said, I don't think anyone's gonna make it without trying to change something. And fortunately for us, we were able to do it.
And there were a lot of things that we were relating to, like again, we keep bringing it back to Gresham, but like I really, just knowing that he struggled so much. And as a writer, as any freelance writer, you can have a good success and then suddenly you're back down again. And you're like writing
His last book was a physical culture book.
He wrote a book on physical fitness, on strength
That one I didn't read.
Strength training. I do have that one, that was on strength training. But to me, that's consistent with who he was. That's consistent, he was always trying to kind of improve himself, but
Not only that, he was trying to contain himself, which is really interesting. He's a guy that was trying to find his shape.
Yeah.
And finish what you're saying, and then I'll say that because
I
interesting.
think that when you are trying to face yourself so much and learn about yourself so much, oftentimes you don't like what you learn, and that scares you. And so I think that was an issue for him as well. I mean, when you really, and I think that's something that when Stanton talks about how everyone people want to be found out,
Yeah, that's it. But the beauty about him is very openly. This guy that hears about the geek in the mountains of the Pyrenees in Spain, Gresham, when he's in the Lincoln Brigade during the Spanish Civil War, he talks to an old carney that was with him. And he tells him the story of the geek named Clem, or Hoatley, And he goes at it fearlessly, the way he exposes himself in the novel, his soul. The movie is basically a dialogue of himself with the Jungian parts of himself. The shadow, the anima, everything. Each character represents one side of him. He's trying to come to this. And this is I love Colin Noir, but we went for a character portrait. I love to do this and do that, but we went for a character portrait. And what I love about the movie is how we gave him 3 fathers, 3 women to illuminate who he is. They were illuminating the emptiness, the negative space that Stan is. And that's the thing. You have a guy that the fascinating solution to shooting him all day long and knowing him so well, 99% of the movie, is we started to shoot him in the dark or just his back. Because we already knew what he was. And the audience knows, look, the way he eats. he is the same way when he has no money than when he has money. You know, he is hunched out like in prison, you know? And we wanted for him to be in a constant state of fear and insatisfaction. So it became really useful to all of a sudden shoot him from behind when he does a con, when he's about planning something, blah, blah, blah.
Now, does Bradley Cooper, as the star of the movie, does he ever say to you while you're shooting, like, hey, you know, you're gonna bring the camera around on my face, or is he okay with that?
The beauty of working with an actor that has directed so beautifully as he did is he understood all that. I mean, he did joke. He said, how come you like that little fetus so nicely? I love it. You know, I just look at him with his little eye. He looks like me in a bathing suit. So
Well, you know, it is a great character study, and I actually, like, for me, I think this is your best film, and one of the reasons, I don't know if there's a reason, but it's just something I like about it, is I feel like, in a way, it's got this purity because you kind of stripped away, and even more so in this black and white version. This is the second time I've seen the black and white version, and I have to say, I think I prefer it because it goes back to what you were saying about how you were going for something unadorned anyway, and it's even less adorned in black and white. And it is such a great character study, and it's so empathetic while also being so bleak and brutal. And is that just something that's intuitive? Does that just come from the way the two of you see the world, or are you consciously sort of trying to construct the movie to get that kind of?
What I would say is we were very compelled by the way Gresham saw the world, for sure. And we are very attracted to that period of literature in America, not just the hard-boiled literature, but we love the hardest James and Cain. We love the darkest Chandlers, but we also love all this unclassifiable brutality that comes. It's basically a mirror.
Brutality and madness.
And madness.
Through
Yeah.
with the American psyche, and I actually.
The American dream brings a lot of madness.
And I actually really kind of understood the questions through the world in many ways, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because at the end of the day, this guy, look, here's the deal. I wanted to do it this way because I'm so fucking tired with people thinking that we have to be binary, either completely good or completely bad. And we're fucking great, you know, and I really wanted to make a portrait of this guy and follow him minutely, and he may be doing, that's why we opened with the guy dragging the corpse. So you have that question hanging, but you can, whether you like him or not at the end, I don't care. You should just, I hope, understand him. And I think the reason why I love the carnival, it's not because the carnival is this namby-pamby happy fucking place. It's horrible. You know, the first thing they do is take out a quarter of this fucking guy. And then, you know, Zena has an affair, but she does it not behind Pete's back. Pete kind of knows, you know? And she's very mature about it. She doesn't fall head over heels. She says, yeah, take the book. Clem is a bastard. But they're sincere, they're honest about being dishonest, as I said. And that I love that. I love that we can exist as people with defects. I think it's a sacred thing we have to fight for. That we are imperfect motherfuckers, all of us. And I like that. And the city, on the other hand, presents a facade of perfection and polishment. And it's a brutal place. Much more brutal than the carnival.
And I find it interesting, that's where you show all the alleys, really.
Yeah.
It's in the city.
Yeah, we start, the carnival had all the air, all the skies, like Thomas Hart Benton paintings. And when we go to the city, we do 2 exteriors. And the rest is all the offices are alleys. And from then on, everything is an alley or a circle, you know? And I think it was important, the language of the sound, little, you know, every time they open a door, there's a vacuum sound as if they were suffocating, no matter if it's wood or not, or they open like vacuum sealed. From that to everything, the circle of the Geek Arena chasing Stan, blah, 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 in the city.
Yeah, well, the sound, that's a whole other thing in this movie. The sound is fantastic. I mean, you just little sound effects like the ways that the fingers clink against glass and things like that, you know.
Not glass, crystal.
Or crystal.
And I tell you, they're very important. Like, I had the guy say, that's fucking glass. The soundtrack for Lilith is silk and crystal. That's her sound. And her heels. So you have to use heels that have a metal tip. And we did all her folding. And I said, the moment she puts that glass in the same spot she put it the first time, he said, I don't drink. I said, the soundtrack, the score is that glass echo, so it has to be crystal. And when she moves, we have to hear the silk rubbing against silk. It has to be this sibilant sound. We designed the chicken wings, I ended up doing myself. Because I used to do all the folding in my movies, and I did it by putting a piece of paper here and going like this. With the paper, it sounds like wings, and I really, the sound of the heat, the sound of the carnival, the layers of the carnival sound is like 50 layers for a moment of silence in the carnival. So, no, I love the sound job in this movie is gorgeous, and the score, I think, is a beautiful work that starts with 5 notes and builds up when Lilith comes in and then ends in 5 notes.
Yeah, the score is incredible, and I thought it was really interesting the choices you made where the score is very lush and full and complete, and then the scenes where you choose to have virtually no score.
Yeah.
And
A lot of silence.
Yeah, and I mean, is that something, is that planned out ahead of time, or do you have score for those scenes and you pull it out in the mix, or?
Well, the mix is really where you know who's leading. I mean, the mix is like a tango. Somebody has to lead and somebody has to follow. They cannot both lead. So you choose when it's a moment for silence. And as I always say, silence is 10 tracks, at least. So you always divide the richness between them. And we wait, for example, for the moment. Everything was to Stan, even the score. So we had to wait for Stan to realize something to indicate support with the score. We were not leading the audience, we were waiting for the characters to react or land the moment.
Well, the last thing I want to ask you about is kind of following up on something Kim said last night, which is, you said the big surprise that came up on this movie was the pandemic. And I'm curious, how much had you shot at the point when you had to shut down for the pandemic? And I'm curious how that then affected what you did when you came back. Did you do a lot of rewriting in the space that you had?
Well, we stopped right in the middle of the lie detector scene. That's where we stopped. And basically between Bradley's lines and Richard receiving the lines is 6 months. So every time we see the offer, 6 months. And Bradley, Miles and I met at lunch break. And we said, the 3 of us, we have to stop. This is before anyone was stopping the movies. And we basically saw the hockey league and the NFL shut down. I went, this is serious. So we said, let's stop now before we have any cases. And it was quite literally, drop your tools and walk out. Meaning nobody picked up cables, nobody took the camera, nobody took the lights down. It stayed like the Andrea Doria, like this. It was like a Mary Celeste ghost ship, for 6 months. And then we came back and I said, where were we? We went at it. Now, in that period, we did address his relationship with Pete. He said, I'm gonna lose 15 pounds. And he did. And I said, I'm gonna gain 50, and I did. I don't know why. But we also addressed the findings, like shooting him from behind in the dark. We applied it more in the carnival. And I found the black and white during the pandemic. We were art directing in greens, reds, and golds. So those give you midtones, and we were lighting with the 3-point studio system of light, which we were lighting the movie as if it was a movie in 1941. But so we already had that, and the deep blacks and all that. But then I started seeing the cut on my computer on grayscale, and I called Kim and I said, "Look at this." And she went, and then eventually I was brave enough to show it to some other people, and I went, what do you think? And I knew it was an impossibility, but I talked to the studio in post, and I said, they said the movie was 3 hours 19, and they said, can you take some minutes out of it? Yes. I said, but can I ask you something in exchange? And we were in a deli, and I said, wait. They said, what are you gonna do? I said, I'll give you a hint. And I ordered a black and white cookie. And I said, please consider. And they said, I showed them the footage, and I said, it's a different movie. It is a different movie.
Yeah.
It's two movies. The way changes, and I said, please, it's not an affectation. It really is integral to the movie as an experience, and they said yes.
And the reaction I had was, I loved it in black and white.
Yes.
And so did Bradley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, it was Betty and Veronica. I would be like Archie. I would go, what do I do this week? I fall in love madly with one version, the other version, but the appeasement was knowing that we were gonna be able to experience both. That was the best possible scenario. And that's why I'm here. Why am I here? I'm here because I love to share this with you guys in this version. And I love, the job of a director is really fucking solitary. You turn on the light, you serve all the drinks at the bar, you clean the puke and you turn the lights off. And all you expect is to meet some patrons in the middle. Say, hey, how are you? How's your night? This is the chance.
Well, it's it's such a fantastic movie, and it's just great seeing it in this version. And I really appreciate both of you coming here and talking with us and showing it to us on film.
If I may, we both want to say a little bit about the new Beverly. You know, for this is one of the remaining temples of film, and cinema literacy is beautiful, and every one of you is a guardian of that. And coming here to this theater helps keep perpetuating the beauty of the language and expanding it of our craft, and I want to thank you for that.
And I want to thank the New Beverly for letting me write here for those years. That allowed me to write in my own voice without, they let me write about pretty much whatever I want as long as it was playing here. And it was so great for me. It was so
It was great for me because that's how we met.
yeah, that's how we met. Barry Lyndon.
Yes,
Um,
I watched that.
But I really appreciate that they allowed me to write those essays, and it means a lot to me because I as writers, you understand, and we've talked about, talking about Gresham and like struggling as a writer, and when you get to write at a place where they allow you to write in the way that you'd like to write and champion you. It just means so much to me. This theater means so much to me, and I'm so honored that this is showing here. I'm so thrilled that
To be in the
it's my
Marquis.
favorite theater.
To be in the Marquis is very symbolic for us, very symbolic to have you here in the pandemic. I believe we can experience cinema in many ways. I'm not just an acolyte of one way. Cinema, I think the scale of cinema is in the ideas and the audiovisual ambition. But experience it collectively, that's a different conversation. There's nothing as beautiful as that.
And by the way, all the
To
other
be with you
writers,
is beautiful for me.
the other great writers that write for me, Beverly too. I don't know if Mark's here. Mark,
Yeah.
hi Mark.
Hey, Mark.
There you are. Hi,
Well,
good to see you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much.